They once called me a failed dreamer. People laughed when I walked out of the office with nothing. My first startup collapsed right before my eyes. Friends turned their backs. My family was disappointed. Amid the laughter and the looks of disdain, I was completely alone, no money, no status, no reputation. A few years ago, I was just a young guy with a dream to shake up an industry long dominated by giants. With just a few $1 million saved up and an old laptop borrowed from a relative, I set out on my first startup journey building a product I believed could change the market. But life didn't unfold the way I had imagined. The product failed. The team broke apart. No customers, no investors. The day I shut down the website and returned the tiny rented office, it poured rain like the sky itself was mocking me. The people who once supported me now questioned everything. Friends didn't want to mention my name anymore. To my family, I became a burden, a textbook case of someone chasing an unrealistic dream. I had lost nearly everything, not just material things, but also the trust and belief of those around me. The hardest part wasn't the failure. It was how satisfied people seemed watching me fall. They called me foolish, reckless, delusional. There were nights I curled up in my tiny room, rent overdue, asking myself, am I wasting my entire life on something meaningless? But in the middle of that wreckage, one question kept me going. If I give up now, then what's the point of the rest of my life? I didn't know how to succeed. But I knew one thing for sure. No one gets to decide the worth of my dream except me. And from the bottom of that pit, the journey began again. He didn't give up. Even when he had nothing left, he chose to keep going. No office? He worked from the cheapest cafe on the corner. No team? He taught himself everything: coding, design, marketing. By day, he worked odd jobs to survive. By night, he hunched over that old, worn-out laptop with faded keys. He didn't chase the same dream he once had. He built a new one, more realistic, more humble, but more resilient. There were no fans, no cheerleaders. He learned to stand up on his own every time he fell. Every penny he earned went into buying a domain, paying for hosting, or taking another online course. There were moments he was too exhausted to keep going. But then he'd remember that rainy day, the day everything collapsed. It wasn't a painful memory anymore. It had become the reason to push forward. To prove that hard times don't have to be the end of the story. Success didn't come like magic. He tried many small projects, most failed. But with every stumble, he understood his work a little more. One day, a customer from a rural town sent a thank you message. His product had helped improve their business. It wasn't a big deal, but it was the first light after a long darkness. Step by step, he rebuilt his credibility. Every line of code, every email sent, every online meeting from that 10-square-meter room, they were the foundation of this second journey. And this time, he didn't need anyone else to believe in him first. He just needed himself not to give up. Little by little, the effort began to bear fruit. A product caught the attention of a small community. An investor reached out. A true partner came on board, believing in his vision. No one laughed anymore. But no one apologized either. And that was okay, because he knew this journey wasn't about revenge. It was about rediscovering who he really was. And he's still walking that path. Quietly. But with unwavering resolve. As things began to look up, he realized something he had never considered before. Success doesn't come from blind effort, it comes from understanding yourself and understanding others. Back then, he worked to prove a point. To push back against the mockery. To avoid being forgotten. But the more he ran for others, the further he drifted from himself. He lived in a constant state of tension, always trying to earn validation, and that exhaustion was heavier than failure itself. One night, after completing his first profitable project, he sat alone. He turned off all his devices. No reports. No posts. No celebrations. Just a quiet question. If today were the last day I got to do this work, would I have any regrets? The answer was yes, if he kept living for other people's approval. That was his awakening. He started to change the way he thought. He stopped saying yes to everything out of fear of missing out. He learned to say no. He no longer worked just to make money, he focused on creating real value. He built a team, not just with talented people, but with those who shared the same belief. He invested in people, in culture, in long-term sustainability. From someone who did everything himself, he became someone who empowered others. From someone who ran out of fear, he became someone who moved with purpose. His third project, a platform that connects small businesses with tech experts, became the turning point. For the first time, he wasn't trying to beat anyone. He was actually building something that mattered. His name started appearing in industry articles. Some called him a rising phenomenon. Others saw him as a comeback story. But to him, those were just small rewards for one big lesson. If you want to go far, first be clear about why you're going. And now, he knows. Very clearly. Once he had found solid footing on the path he chose, he decided to return, not to boast, but to face the past. He went back to his old university, the place where, years ago, he stood before the class to pitch his very first idea and was met with laughter. The lecture hall hadn't changed, same old desks, chalk-streaked blackboard, but this time, he was invited back as a guest speaker, introduced as the founder of a tech platform now gaining industry-wide attention. He returned to his hometown, where his parents once hid from the neighbors the fact that he had quit a stable job to pursue a startup. This time, the neighbors gathered in numbers like never before, not to gossip, but to hear him share the story of starting from zero. His father's eyes, for the first time in many years, held quiet pride, no words needed. He met old friends, the ones who used to dismiss him, who once said he was dreaming too far beyond his ability. Some shook his hand and offered awkward congratulations. Some simply watched from a distance. But he held no resentment, because he understood. Everyone has their own fears, and sometimes, contempt is just a mask for insecurity. He didn't come back to prove anything. He came back to show himself that the past no longer controls the future. What was most striking was that he no longer felt pain when looking back. The wounds of yesterday had become a solid foundation. The mockery that once broke him now served as fuel for hundreds of young people stepping out of their comfort zones. He chose to tell his story without sugarcoating it. Raw. Honest. Sometimes unfiltered. So others would know. Success isn't the spotlight at the end of the road, it's the journey of overcoming yourself, one step at a time. And by returning, he didn't erase a chapter filled with scars. He closed it with gratitude. Not to forget, but to honor every part of it. After returning, he didn't stop. For many, that could have been the perfect ending, overcoming adversity, finding success, gaining recognition. But for him, the journey didn't end in the spotlight. Because he understood, if there was once a day he had nothing, then tomorrow could start from zero again. And that's why the most important thing wasn't to hold on to glory, but to hold on to why he started. He kept working, but with a different mindset. No longer rushing to prove anything, he chose to move slow and steady. He spent more time developing his team, listening to the younger generation, and investing in projects with social value even when they didn't turn a profit right away. Each year, he set aside time to visit schools, offering free talks. He didn't speak about how successful he had become, but about how many times he had failed. Because he believed it's the falls, if understood the right way, that truly help people grow. He also began giving more time to himself. No longer running on a never-ending treadmill. He learned to slow down, focusing on his health, meditating, reading, and enjoying the small things. A good cup of coffee, a quiet morning, an evening without deadlines. From time to time, he'd meet young people who once messaged him during their lowest points. Many of them now had their own projects, their own companies, or had simply found themselves again after being lost for a while. They often said, "Your story changed me." He would just smile. Because to him, that was the greatest success of all. And so, he kept on living. Not to stand out, but to be of service. Not to be remembered, but to help others not be forgotten on their own journey. His life didn't stop at the peak. It began again, every single day. With kindness. And then, in the most ordinary of days, he suddenly realized. True success isn't about standing at the top. It's about looking back on the road you've traveled and being able to smile. Without bitterness, without regret. He had once been laughed at. Had fallen to the ground amid voices of doubt. But those very wounds taught him how to stand tall, live truthfully, and never forget why he started. Today, he doesn't need applause. It's enough to know he's still walking, steady, calm, and always ready to reach out. To someone who, like his younger self, just needs a hand. To you, the one who may be struggling, whether at rock bottom or somewhere in between. If you've been mocked, don't let that define you. If you've failed, don't let that limit you. Keep going, even slowly is fine, just don't give up. Because sometimes, the ones the world once underestimated are the very ones who create what no one else ever dared to imagine.